Hey everyone, Ben here from Stellar Work. In today's episode, we're talking with Paolo Sammicheli about agile hardware development and the abilities and inabilities of Gen AI and life in general. Let's jump right into it. Hey Paolo, good to have you here.
Nice to meet you, and thanks for inviting me, Benjamin.
Man, we're finally meeting in person. I don't know if you know this, but I've been following you and your career for quite some time because my original background comes from hardware development. So we have the similarity on this one here. And I'm
Okay.
also helping hardware companies develop better products and services. So I've been really going through everything that you've been pushing out and trying to get my hands on anything that you put out there. So I'm really glad for having you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm flattered that you you are my follower.
For everyone out there who doesn't know you yet, can you give us a brief explanation of who you are and what you're doing?
Oh, yes. So my name is Paolo Sammicheli. I'm from the pretty city of Siena, that is located in South Tuscany, Italy. I started working 30 years ago, around, some little bit more. And the first 20 years, I worked on software and electronics development. And the last 10 years, I've been involved in helping organizations to find better ways of creating beautiful products. Today, I work as a Scrum trainer affiliated with Scrum Incorporated, the company founded by Jeff Sutherland. And I wrote a few books. The first couple of books is Scrum for Hardware and Scrum for Hardware Explained. So here we are talking about a product that might contain some software, since software is everywhere today,
Hmm.
but there is also some electronics so that the software can run. There is mechanical parts, so atoms to serve a specific purpose. There might be plastics, aluminum, or composite material, meaning still atoms, but together to serve a purpose of protection or aesthetics. There might be an engine, wheels, and move like
Hmm.
a vehicle, or wings and fly like an airplane. Altogether, how can you design and ideate, design, build, and then produce using the Scrum framework? And the last book is about artificial intelligence, so Scrum in AI.
Awesome. I think we'll cover that AI stuff later. For now, I'm really curious about to learn more about how to develop hardware with Scrum. What are your experiences? What kind of products have you been helping companies to develop with Scrum? What would you say are good fields in which a Scrum implementation can really uh, push a product development, certainly a hardware product development project forward?
So I've been lucky enough to work in very different fields. And so one of the first product was IoT, so mainly software and electronics. That was a house automation platform. And I worked also with industrial machinery like laser machinery, 3D printing, and micromechanics. So especially for gold chain creation, some jewelry. So basically,
Hmm.
I worked on civil engineering, so companies building, designing and building streets, highways, tunnels, bridges, railroads, rail stations, everything for
But
mobility.
how does that work? I can't imagine having like 2 week sprints when you're building a bridge. You're just putting there some sticks and ask the cars to run over those sticks, or how are you going to build such huge structures with Scrum? Are you having a daily stand up with like um everyone working on the construction site?
So, yeah, if you take something very challenging like a high-speed train track with multiple bridges and tunnels, this is a sort of increment, and the life cycle might be even more than 10 years, right? So what happens is you have some kind level of maturity already even before talking about Scrum. So before you have some kind of a preliminary project, then you have the definitive project, then the executive projects, and then you have the site and the building. So in these different maturity level, or call it phases, call it as you prefer, it might be different teams involved. So yeah, when there is the construction site, there is the topic of aligning all the different workers for different domains. And they do daily scrum, they use board, the visualization, they stop and reflect, and so on in
So,
retrospectives.
so you would physically put a board on a
Mhm.
construction site,
Yeah,
or do you
yeah.
give everyone iPads and then they manage
Mm.
on here?
Normally in the dirty and on what's the I found also these in factories when you have teams working in production. Normally the sticky notes and markers works way better. Also because there is also something from Lean about the visualization. Visual management is appreciated even regardless the framework. It might be Scrum, it might be something else. Having
Hmm.
something visual is really appreciated. So yeah, in that kind of environment, and we normally use the low-tech, low-fi flow representation. And yeah, of course, these days people have phones, so there is some usage of apps on the phone because every worker have a phone. But really, the need is to come up together and see. And they were doing that already with like the the design and the schemas of the things they have to build. So they use the paper already. They used to come and discuss every day about what part of the work should be done. So adding some sticky notes there wasn't really a revolution. Was something
Okay,
kind
okay.
of
When
it
when
was
when
just
I when I think
was
of the projects that I've been to, like when clients call me, most of the time I hear that as a developer, I don't want to go into a retrospective because nothing's going to change, and I have to waste some time that I could work on the project. And also, I need to talk about my feelings. And actually, like, I don't want it. I don't want to throw a ball to each other and have like a talking stick passing around. And I like if you think of a software development team, this is
mm,
already pretty hard. If I'm thinking about a hardware development team or inside of a production facility or even at a construction site,
mm.
it sounds way harder for me to get them to come together and like open up for mistakes that happen and share learnings. And what are your experiences? What would you suggest if I were in that situation?
So the topic here is more coaching than Scrum.
Hmm.
So when you want to be a coach, the first I studied neurolinguistic programming, so I'm a licensed NLP coach. So I studied for 3 years. What they teach you is that the first thing you got to get is the so-called rapport. The rapport is getting the right to be heard. So it's a
Hmm.
kind of relationship, so that the coachees gives the coach the right to talk and the availability to be listened. So of course, you need to kind of I wouldn't say adapt because it's not an adaptation. It's about tuning. You got to tune in the environment where you are. So when I had blue collars teams, for example, teams composed by mainly blue collars, of course I couldn't use the same techniques and practices that I use if I'm on a marketing team. I had once a marketing team that was composed almost entirely by women. So the way you behave and it's a matter of interpretation. You got to tune to the context. So talking sticks, honestly, I don't even use talking sticks with my software developers.
Honestly,
And
me neither.
um, I talk about feeling when there is the need of talking about feelings, when it's not awkward
Hmm.
talking about feelings. So what the invitation in a retrospective is what worked, what we liked, and we want to keep doing. So let's share that these things worked, and what worked less, and what we might want to change so that we can work better. Now, if you are with blue collars, maybe they will discuss about tooling organization. It's hard to find a number when you need it.
Hmm.
And that's the same concept in software when somebody says that when I need that library, getting the documentation is hard because it's not well maintained and it's not in order. So it's kind of translating the concept. The idea is that improvement works in every domain, and if we start with the idea that we are doing this to work better and with less effort, less fatigue, for the sake of everybody, the company, the workers. So it's a win-win situation. Everybody agrees that, okay, let's sit for a second and let's see if we can improve something so that everybody benefit. Of course, if you start a retrospective with a group of field workers or blue collars workers in an industrial plant, like you were starting a retrospective with my former team, marketing team based only on women. If you exchange the two approaches, that at best you laugh, right?
Yeah.
Or probably people will leave. So I
Or
remember
you
with
just get fired, right?
but I mean, yeah, I'm also always a consultant. So the idea of get that I don't know if tomorrow will come is an incentive. It's not. It
Hmm.
doesn't scare me. I mean, the this is also a part of being a coach. The best coach requires the less effort. So if I'm a great coach, I join a team in a matter of few weeks or a few sessions. I make them able to improve. If I have to go a lot of time and it takes a long time, maybe I'm not so effective. So my challenge, intellectual challenge, I mean, is how can I be effective in a shorter time? And the idea is if you do this and you find clients to publish what they are learning, then you always have enough clients to not worry about, oh, this client can fire me. I mean, being fired means that you've done something wrong, and
Hmm.
that's a feedback that you want to avoid. But not being renewed because there is no need of you anymore, that's fine. It's a part of the process.
Absolutely. That's a
The
whole different story.
Yeah, so an employee can have fear of being fired. A coach, I think, should hope that this will happen as soon as possible. I mean, not being renewed just because they are good in that way. So, yeah, but let's get to the initial question because you touched a very interesting points. And here I want to quote my dear friend Alistair Coburn, one of the 17 Agile Manifesto authors. Forget about software and hardware. Everything you do, regardless of the domain, you are selling decisions. So basically, what people do at work in 2023 is making decisions and embedding these decisions on something that is visible and usable. A software developer, when he's typing on a keyboard, is not actually programming. Is transferring the decisions, the desired decisions he made in his brain into something the machine can understand. When you have a CAD designer drawing a line, is not designing, is transferring the decision he made into something that the machine can visualize and probably a CAM will use later to. So basically, this what we do, we embed the decisions in something. So what is the concept is that it's a two-sided coin. The gold side is making the decision, and the other side is bronze. So if you go on the Olympic Games, there is still some value in bronze, but of course less than gold, and is the embedding of the decision. So what is Scrum? You want to have a backlog of decisions that needs to be embedded in something so that somebody else can have value of this embedding of decisions. And if you look at this very philosophical, high-level way, then it's like in Matrix when the Neo started seeing the green code in front and understand that everything is a simulation, so he can break the rules because the rules are just made up. And that's what happened when I started thinking this way, thanks to Alistair. So anything it's decision. The question is, any decision is a suitcase decision, contains other decisions.
Can you give me an example on what do you mean by saying a backlog is filled with different decisions? How would that look like on a practical level?
Oh, well, basically, we need to decide, let's get a simple product that everybody knows, like our application in our phone that you can manage your bank account, okay? Mm-hmm. So in your product backlog, what would you put? The first story probably would be the user wants to see the amount of money in your bank account so that he knows how much they can spend. And so then you have in this story acceptance criteria, where we should put this in this number. Do we update this number in real time or only once when you open an application, blah, 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 all right? So this is a set of decisions you need to make. So how often you update the balance of your bank account is a design decision based on the usage and the context. A few years ago, probably every application you open it and everything was static. It was updated only once. Now, at least in EU, we have this instant money transfer that now in a couple of years they will become at the same price of the traditional money transfer. So we are going towards real-time banking even more. And so a decision of making this information static could have been a good idea in the past, is definitely not a good idea today. The thing is, are we every sprint visualizing the decision we made embedded somewhere so that at the sprint review, what we do, we challenge the decisions we embed during the sprint. So when we talk about the increment at the end, is that the first sprint you make some decisions, and then you have these decisions embedded in something. There might be a code running, it might be a design, you see the render, might be an electronic circuit, you run it on a simulator because you don't have at the beginning even the hardware. The second sprint, what you do, you make more decision on top of the first increment, the first batch of decisions. And so if you think philosophically, every product is incremental because you make decisions one after the other. And these are layers like an onion. So the idea is, are you thinking and visualizing the process linearly with a Gantt chart, illuding yourself that you can have phases? Or are you really thinking and accepting the human nature of inability to understand everything since the beginning, to guess everything since the beginning, and visualizing this layering of decisions so that you want to discover the wrong decisions as soon as possible? Because if you grow these layers of decisions, then you have to change a decision that is deep down in the increment. This will cost more than the surface decisions. So if this a kind of approach at the end is a way of visualizing what is the natural flow of thoughts, so that we can try to limit our wrong assumptions.
So like a value chain of decisions that leads to
Exactly.
the current state of the product or service.
Ed is showing the slides actually of
Hmm.
this concept with this value stream mapping of decision. So the company is just a flow, very complex flow of decision up and there. So the marketing decide that the bank application must be blue, and somebody in development is waiting to understand which tone of blue should we use, and we would like then somebody needs to test it, and so they want to know what is the right blue to be tested. These are decisions, all
Hmm.
decisions. So then increments doesn't really change. So I don't care if somebody is building an airplane, a bridge, or a software or a marketing campaign. I need to coach them in first realizing that when they make decisions, they have not all the information they should need to make a perfect decision, because a perfect decision doesn't exist. Perfection doesn't exist. So every time you make a decision, you have to assume there is a percentage of things that you didn't consider. And so the idea is, let's visualize all the decisions we make so that we challenge them often and we make them to be standing on their own. We don't need to stay there and maintain the decision up and standing, because they are self-sustaining.
I mean,
Uh,
it sounds pretty good on paper what you're saying, and I can really follow your thoughts behind it. But to me, it also sounds like you have to really put thought and effort into it. Like it doesn't happen just overnight or on a casual Monday morning. So I'm asking myself, is it always worth it? Like, what are the benefits of doing this approach, and how could you measure them if you do?
I the concept is we know that a few weeks ago we had Daniel Kahneman passing, right? So Daniel Kahneman is the author of the book Thinking Fast and Slow and Nobel Prize and so on. So we know that our brain is not perfect. We talk about system one, system two, or cognitive biases. So the concept is, do we want a process that help us to overcome our limits and our, let's call it the defects. We can argue if cognitive bias is a defect or not. Probably not. It's an evolutionary pattern. But anyway, do we want to have a process that try to mitigate our imperfections, or do we want to keep these philosophical and intellectual arrogance to think that we are perfect beings and at the center of the universe? We are not. So the concept is, okay, why should I challenge the way I think, the way I visualize and transfer my thoughts? Because I want to mitigate my inability to be effective in every circumstance, in every domain. So for the sake of people receiving the embedding of my decisions.
Hmm.
So the approach is, do you want to know how the world works, or do you want just live ignoring everything? If
Hmm.
you think that ignorance is, and somebody is stating that, no, that better being ignorant, because then you don't don't think too much, you're happy. People thinking too much, they are often unhappy. But if we are talking about products and we want to produce the best with the minimum effort, maybe understanding what are our limits could be a good way where to start. And so that's really the benefit is, do you want to make decision, or do you want the decisions to make you?
Hmm.
Because when
But would you say this is true for all types of projects? Because when I look at like German, let's say German infrastructure projects, which are mainly organized via different tenders that go out through all over Europe, um, there you have like clearly written documents what needs to be done. And it's not the first bridge we build in Germany, although if you look at the construction sites, sometimes you can get the idea of it's the first bridge that we've ever building. but we've done that before. So actually, there should be like a best approach of doing it, and there should be a lot of assumptions beforehand on which you say, all right, I know this and that about bridges or trains or whatever type of infrastructure I'm building. So I have this set of assumptions, and now you're coming along and saying, hey, challenge your assumptions and what you're having. And do you think that that is true, that is helpful for all types of projects, or do you see certain projects being more suitable for this type of approach?
So your example is the typical example that software companies, software developers bring up, when they say, the software is not a bridge. A bridge is very clear. Then when you talk with civil engineers, they will have different opinions. So,
Okay.
and by the way, the construction, the civil engineer company I mentioned, that is one of my case studies, that they have part of the company in Germany and they work on European projects. So I've seen those kind of developments. And what people normally say is that, we have everything on paper, so we know what to do. And then, for example, let's get the biggest project I ever coached is oil and gas plant, and that was the total amount of money was 1.5 billions. Okay, and the first day when we were doing this kind of briefing with the project lead, and somebody else brought me in. So this guy wanted to know why he needed a coach. And the first things was this: we do have all the requirements because we got the contract, we know what to do. I mean, it's a drilling plant. It's not rocket science. Okay. How long is the document telling you what to do? Oh yes, it's more 1,000 pages. So, okay, so it's just like not having it, because there isn't human being capable of reading entirely 1,000 pages and remembering everything. So what we've done with this team, say, okay, let's collect of the people in a team that needs to work on this project. We were on the early stage. And let's do a workshop. So basically, in this room, we used a very big wall, and we were like listing with big post-its the deliverables of the project, and that they were reading, dividing in pairs. They were reading the pages. Every time they were finding something about one of the deliverables, they were cutting that part, and they were like putting underneath the post-it all the requirements to have like the list of things we need to deliver with all the details. And while we were doing that, we started discovering something like, this part of the project, they say that we need marine protection, meaning that the surface should resist the sea breeze. Okay, mm-hmm. So because there might be some corrosion with the sea breeze. The other part of the document, 400 pages later, they mentioned that we don't need marine protection. The difference was several $100,000s. So only on paint.
But who is writing those 1,000 pages? Like, nobody's reading 1,000 pages.
Thousands
book.
of people.
Yeah, thousands of
people.
Just writing that document.
That document was wrote by thousands. Oh, sorry, I lost you. Maybe maybe better you. I lost you for a second, and probably I spoke over you. So
no,
do you want to repeat?
Don't worry. I was just curious, like if nobody ever reads like a good fantasy book that has 1,000 pages, but there are like 1,000 people each writing, like contributing one page to a document, and then saying that, okay, we have all the requirements together, and then having a contractor, like having 20 contractors, which you're probably going to need for such a big project, and asking them to read and understand 1,000 pages, which you probably haven't compiled, but just like put together by the different groups contributing to the document is a lot to ask. I think like who's going to read that? I'm reading tender offers like 20 pages, 120 pages, and after 100, 120 pages or so, I need like pauses in between to understand and comprehend everything that is inside that document to really understand it and get it right. So that if you give me 1,000 pages document, you would need to pay me to read that document, or I will not make any money out of this. Or I will feed it into an AI which will read it and give me like a brief summary of it. Maybe that'll help.
And that's very interesting. That's very interesting because we discovered there is a paper that came out a few months ago that even a large language model fed with a long document, there is a span of attention. So basically, even the model remembers very well what is at the beginning, then there is a decrease of memory, and then it goes up at the end. So something that is in the middle, and this is actually very similar to what human beings do. So you remember very well the beginning, you remember very well the latter part, but in the middle you might have memory confusion. You don't remember properly what is in the middle. And this is happening also with the large language model. So there isn't any excuse for that. There is impossible with such a large number of information to have that and to assume that it's clear, we know what to do. No, you don't. You have that, but the probability of mistakes is still a high. And so you need first you need a team, not an individual. So you need collective intelligence that increase the chance of see the mistakes as soon as possible. And second, you have to assume the risk that there are parts that we don't remember, because our memory works in this way. And actually even LLM today, I don't know tomorrow with quantum computing, but today we have papers stating that. So when we talk about large language model, people say, oh, we have this beautiful model now. This is huge context. Yeah. Try to feed a very long document and try to assume that model remember perfectly entirely the document. Good luck with that. It's not true. You're gonna have some hallucinations, they are called in AI. So
I think this is really interesting because we're always talking about artificial intelligence in a way that we think it's better at pattern recognition and storing memory quicker in a more detailed way than a human being. But actually, if I follow what you're saying, it will fall into the same traps as if we would feed this 1,000-page document to let's say 1 or 2 people taking care of the product as a product owner or an area product owner, so to say.
My understanding of technology and is changing so fast today that every time you talk about AI, you should say, for what we know at the moment, because, but from what I know at the moment, artificial intelligence and machine in general are better than human just for speed and repeatedness. So if you repeat a task multiple times, a machine is not making mistakes because of the repetition. The human will make mistakes because of the repetitive tasks. And then the speed. But I'm not aware about really any other advantage. So the idea is that if you read 100 pages, you ask for a summary, the model will produce a summary in seconds, and the human being might take days or weeks to do that. So it's faster, all right. The level of accuracy, though, it's disputable if the machine can be accurate 100% of the time. You have to assume that it will never be 100% accuracy, and we have this kind. Or I don't want to enter into the technical details about AI, but the accuracy is never 100%. It's not
Okay.
deterministic.
Yeah.
It's probabilistic. So the concept is how you can be very, very sure. Then what we know today is that by combining natural intelligence, artificial intelligence together, then you have the best possible accuracy. That still is not 100%, but it's significantly higher than considering the single intelligence alone.
But speaking of artificial intelligence, I also noticed that you've written a book, Scrum in AI, and I already have to apologize that I couldn't read it beforehand. But I'm really curious because when I researched you before our recording, I found out that you started working with AI and digging into the topic by what, 2020, 2021, or even before?
Yeah, the proper work on AI started on 2020 during the pandemic because
Hmm.
all my clients were locked down, and
Hmm.
so I was home alone, and I decided to study more about AI. I knew it already. I studied self-studying, and I enrolled on the MIT Sloan School of Business. And one of the topics that I studied to get my certificate there was AI. At the same time, one of my biggest clients that is published, so I can mention, is Boehringer Ingelheim. Is a giant pharma based in Germany.
Hmm.
I was working with them already since 2018, I think. And they had this big AI project that were starting it. This was a big environment, so it was a scaled environment. They had multiple teams and a very complex product. So they, hearing that I was studying AI and I'm Scrum Scale trainer, so I'm very, very experienced in scaling development. They asked me to work with them in this project. So we started working with natural language processing NLP in 2020. That's before the usage of large language model. So in consumer market, because that was to 2022. And so after 1 year, 2021, I realized that with the experience I had with this client and a couple of other clients, because it was like a word of mouth. So every time I was mentioning with somebody, oh, I'm working with AI with this company. And the other client was asking me, oh, well, we do have an AI team that needs some coaching. Can you help us?
Hmm.
And so in just 1 year, I had the privilege to coach three different teams in three different domains. One was the pharma and NLP. The other was in a bank and was machine learning, so numbers, not words. And another startup was conversational AI. And with this experience, I said, "Oh wow, I do have some experiences, some evidences on how to apply Scrum in this domain." And so I started writing the book. Now, working with Jeff Sutherland, I got his attention because he's very passionate about AI,
I've seen that.
even
Yeah.
before ChatGPT. And also because there is the foreword that Jeff wrote for my book that is explaining that the first ideas of Scrum came out from the MIT Media Lab in Boston, and they were next door with I don't remember the name of the guy. Brooke is the surname. They were building the first working robot in history. That company is now called the iRobot,
Hmm.
and the one producing the Roomba.
Yeah,
And
I
they
know.
were working on a robot called the Genghis Khan. That was a prototype of. It was like an ant with six
Hmm.
legs, and that was a project to create a drone to send it to the moon for moon exploration. And that was some ideas of AI also because Marvin Minsky was also next door. And so Scrum and AI, the origins was in the same hotbed, and they
But
were influencing
where
each
would you
other.
say does those topics come together? Like, are we talking about teams that work on a project or service using AI to enhance their work on the project, or using AI or implementing large language models inside their service to make it more efficient or to make it more effective or to give it to a bigger audience? Like, what kind of a type of approach are we talking about?
So in my book, I started from the case studies that is the hardest possible thing is how can you develop AI? So when we were working on 2020, we had in-house trained models. So we were actually developing AI. We weren't integrating ChatGPT with an application. That's easy. It's if we don't consider the product ownership part, that might be challenging because the risk of developing something that nobody cares is even higher. So when I talk about integration with large language models, I normally talk about product ownership more than development, because for a developer you just called an API. Not there we were building actually models. So I had to integrate the software development life cycle with the AI models development life cycle. Then I had other cases of people wanted to integrate ready models and enrich the application. Then I had other cases where people wanted to fine-tune models to create new services. But I started from the hardest part. That's why after 1 year I had enough data to publish a book, because I learned to play basketball directly on NBA. And so that's all you learn, or you get a lot of punches in your face, you know. That's the kind of environment I was.
If you think like a couple of years ahead, how would you say that the whole AI topic and the development of large language models are impacting the way that we think about product development or service development within an organization?
Yeah, I've noticed in my teams, and then now is a consumer trend, that when you had some AI, you not only build the AI, but use the AI to help you building more AIs. You know, so there is this
Like
kind of
the GitHub Copilot and all those
exactly,
nice
exactly.
nice things.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, every time you have to analyze some data, some numbers, if you have a data scientist in the team, they will come up with MATLAB or something and solve a very complex problem that a normal product owner can't manage in days or weeks. So when you have this kind of skill, I've seen multiple things even more complex. Some of them are under NDA, so I can't share everything. But from the things I can share, there is more that I've seen done by companies, especially when you have to understand the clients' market behavior. You can get that. So clusterization, for example, could be very useful if you can have like some custom algorithms to understand mass behavior, and that is something you develop internally. And then, of course, ChatGPT, who doesn't love ChatGPT? And so these teams also started integrating these large language models in different parts of the product. Of course, when you have a deep understanding of models, you see a more specific use of the large language model than in a company that woke up yesterday and said, "Oh, let's use
Sure.
some AI."
Yeah.
And so in these teams where AI was already present 4 years ago, they use here and there some calls to the large language model, but only for specific things. So it's not a general usage like you might suspect from outside, seeing how consumers use a large language model. So most of the time, people use a large language model for doing things that just work, but that wasn't really the best case. So what is the future? We see a continuous integration of this kind of technology into the individual work, and this is going to become also part of the teamwork. So we're going to see a team of the future, or probably of the present in some cases, being a network of natural intelligence and artificial intelligence working together and helping each other. The more is individual interaction. So the more these interactions are functional, and the better it will be the result. The more dysfunctional, the worse it will be the result. So what I know so far, the best I know so far, that it's a very good idea to use a large language model to brainstorm ideas. It's a very bad idea to let the model to decide. So that's what I teach when I teach prompt engineering. Guys, you do not remove the only things that the human brain is better than machine brain. That is contextual judgment and ability to change idea. I mean, if you have a model and you say, let's make a simple example for people not aware about AI. Let's say we have a model recognizing cats from dogs. You provide the model pictures of cats, and you say, this is a cat. Pictures of a dog, and you say, this is a dog. You do this multiple times, and then the model, you show a picture and say, okay, 96% this is a dog. What happens is that if you provide a parrot, the model will try to guess if it's a cat or dog anyway. If you do this with even a very small child, when he's learning everything, so it's an empty network, his brain, and you show a cat, a dog, you show a parrot, he does understand immediately that is different. This is an exception, because human beings can change their mind, their opinion instantly. A machine needs a lot of data to change the assumption they have. So that's the competitive advantage of human beings that probably machine will never catch up, is changing ideas. We can change idea in a second. A machine needs a lot of data to reformulate the thought to change the idea. And so deciding requires a very quick adaptation in changing idea if you recognize something different in your environment, something that the machine can do.
That really reminds me on, I think I saw it on, Joe Justice talked about it when he suggested to rephrase the Agile Manifesto by saying, I think it was interactions between people and robots over processes and tools, something like that. That really reminds me of it, because when you're saying that it needs both sides of the spectrum, like the decision making, but also the brainstorming and the ideation part, where you just want to like push out different results, then maybe we should rethink this at a certain point. Because in my past couple of years of experience, I always thought of robots and also LLMs not as something that people interact in terms of like with a human being, but more like a tool. For me, it was on the tool side of the Agile Manifesto, right? So what you're basically saying is that let's bring this on the human side of the Agile Manifesto to really get better results.
And also, yes, this quote has been misunderstood from some people. Some people in my conferences pointed out that we are diminishing the importance of the humanity, putting the robots on the same side. The point is that that part of the manifesto was talking about the interaction with the humans, not about the humans themselves. So the idea is, guys, we need to take care of the interaction between humans with human, machine with humans, and machine to machine, because this interaction is creating the new collective intelligence of the team. And if we consider that is a tool, there is a quote from, I've seen a video of Steve Jobs saying something. He was very, very young at that time when he presented the first Macintosh. There is this video, and he says that the first TV show was a still camera pointing to a radio. So when we have a new technology, the first thing we do, we try to copy the previous pattern because at the beginning you don't understand the potential of the new technology. So the way we are using large language models today, it's a still camera pointing to a radio to make a TV show. We still have to figure out the real usage. There is something interesting. Text transformation. Okay, text transformation is cool. So you write down the Agile manifesto and you ask to make it a poem in a Shakespeare style, and he make it in seconds. He makes it in seconds, and human being probably cannot do that. We don't know the utility of this, of course, but text transformation, so summarization, exploitation, it's something that is but it's a tool. The real interesting part is that this model know more documents that we could read in our life. And so data mining, so trying to stimulate the model to express the relevant information the model possesses, that is something like a mine. It contains some diamonds, so we need to go there and find them. Now, two problems. First, the model will cheat, because every time you ask a model if knows something, the model always responds yes, and you get hallucinations. So you have to find a way to do fact checking. Second,
I know some people doing the same thing.
Oh yeah, of course, because the model is representing a human nature anyway. It's a probabilistic expression of human data. So at the end, it contains all the misbehavior and bias we have.
Yeah. Have you seen this example on, I think it was Amazon, when they used AI to sort out applications? So when they have like a open position and they're looking for a new hire for this position, they fed the previous decision making into the AI and then have the AI make the decision about it. And what they recognized that the AI was making biased decision towards hiring young, hardworking, willing to hard work men, right?
Yeah.
So they would decide against women, decide against people with disabilities, decide against people with a different skin color, and they recognize their own biases by looking at the AI that they've created, and then seeing themselves in the mirror, and they were like pinpointing at the AI, like, this is wrong, this is really bad. But the AI was basically just pinpointing back like a mirror, saying, hey, I'm just doing what you did in the past years. And then they quickly shut down the whole program.
Yeah. So, and some data scientists might say, oh, well, because this happens because we have the so-called skewed data. So the data is not representative the entire situation. But let's pretend that for a second we have the record of every vote in United States, for example, and since the first election down to the last one, we have every single vote. And we create a perfect model, because at that point we have the perfect representation of the data. And you ask, who is going to be the next president? If you do that, the answer will be certainly a man. Very probabilistic will be a Caucasian man, and probably the age will be between 60 and 80. Because what we call the bias is generalizing a distribution in a set of data that for ethical reason we consider unfair, but at the end it is a natural process. So if you say that if I have to design a development team, in every book you see a group of men, that is a discrimination, because there is also women writing software. Of course, even the first developer in the world, Alice Gropper, was a woman. But if you do the percentage, you see a smaller representative. Now, I don't want to enter into the discussion of how to fix this. What is the problem? That the model that Google launched, for example, I think it was Google, yeah, it was the last Gemini version. They were asking, create a picture of Ukrainian women in 18th century. And since the model had some discrimination rules, the women you will get was one black, one Asian, one white. So, because the idea of equality is not really the idea of being equal. Sorry, I'm thinking in Italian, so I don't know if this concept in English would sound correctly. I apologize if I'm offending somebody. But the thing is that if you ask something about the past, probably you want a biased representation, because that's the truth. No,
Yeah.
you can.
Yeah.
If you want a future perspective, though, you want something that ethical would be acceptable. What is the problem with models? That the models project the past to the future because it's a probabilistic. So it's a very hard problem. Talking about AI and ethics will take, I think, another hour. But anyway, that's really the fascination of this concept, that it's never ending.
All right. Thank you so much. I think we keep that for another recording. Thank you so much for being here. This was really, really interesting. Next week, I'm going to interview someone specialized in product strategy and product management. Have you got any question from your field of study that I should bring into the next episode?
Product management. That might be maybe the same question you asked me. What is going to change in product management in the next 10 years? So we have seen a lot of trends in the past, no? The adoption of technology, early adopters, late majority, early majority, and so on. So what is going to change? We are getting very big new technologies like AI and quantum computing and the space exploration. What is going to change in product management?
All right. Thank you so much. I'm glad for having you here and wishing you a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. Anytime. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on this very first episode of the Stellar Work podcast. A special thank you to Paolo Sammicheli for diving into the fascinating world of Agile hardware with us. Paolo, your insights have been incredible and enlightening, and I really appreciate you giving this new venture a try with me. For our listeners, if you want to learn more about Agile practices and hardware development, be sure to follow Paolo's work on LinkedIn on his website. The links for this are in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more discussions like this one, and tune in next time as we explore another intriguing topic. Until then, take care and stay curious.